Alright. So, this article I'm about to read is from the community hub for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. It's all about Leatherface's overhead slam and swing. They're explaining how it works basically. It's part of the tips and tricks. Leatherface's overhead slam and swing explained. So here it is. Here's an in-depth explanation of what's going on with Leatherface's overhead slam and swing. Leatherface's chainsaw has been a topic of interest for all of our family mates out there. We wanted to take the time to go into depth about the design of Leatherface's chainsaw, his rev, and what's going on with his overhead slam and swing. Leatherface has a UI meter that showcases how much rev he is using. The rev meter is going to start at about 50%. As you rev your chainsaw, you are adding heat, and as the heat builds up, the meter turns red. You can build that up to possibly land an overhead attack. It is possible to overheat your chainsaw if you continue to rev until the meter is full. When you overheat, you will stall and you'll hear some concerned noises from Leatherface. Many Leatherface players start off by keeping their eye on that meter to get the feel down of when he's about to overheat. At a certain point, you'll be able to rev to the point where Leatherface will raise his chainsaw overhead to make him even more dangerous. A player's rev needs to be between 70 to 99% on the meter in order to do so. With this chainsaw overhead, you can achieve an overhead slam attack. Many players are familiar with doing an overhead slam attack and then following up with a melee swing attack. Leatherface mains have been experiencing stalling when doing that. Our December 12, 2023 patch was able to fix an issue that was present in the UI for Leatherface's chainsaw rev. The UI was previously showing the incorrect amount of rev that a player had built up. Here is the intended design with Leatherface's overhead and his swing attacks. When a player is able to perform a slam attack, there's a certain amount of build-up power that gets added back to his saw and is reflected in the rev meter. What does that mean? It means that players are rewarded with a bit of extra chainsaw juice, so to speak, for landing the slam attack. The amount of power that a player is going to get back is going to depend on two things: how close Leatherface is to overheating when doing the slam attack, and whether or not his attack hits a victim. For example, one Leatherface player may do an overhead slam attack when the rev meter is showing 70%. They will more than likely get no heat back and stall out their chainsaw when attempting to do a second swing attack. After the overhead strike, if they don't take a moment to pause and rev a little more, they also have a video that better illustrates when a player will stall. So yeah, basically, if you don't have a full rev, if you really want to get comfortable with the chainsaw at like 99%, you want to get as comfortable to getting that red bar as close to the yellow bar as possible without stalling. That's what you really want to do. Because then you'll get that extra juice back in the chainsaw, and you won't stall. You'll get enough juice to get that extra hit after the overhead slam, basically. To be able to successfully do an overhead slam attack and then swing, players will need to increase their rev. If you rev at 99%, you will get more power back and you'll be able to swing immediately after that without stalling. This is designed as a risk versus reward mechanic. The more skilled the player, the more likely they are not to stall. There is also a built-in calculation which accounts for latency that adds an extra rev to the meter. That means that if a Leatherface player revs close to 99% and is able to successfully land an overhead slam attack on a victim, they'll be rewarded with that extra rev so they can also swing. They also have a video on how to successfully overhead slam and land a swing attack. Figure 2, ample chainsaw. So yeah, if you can keep your chainsaw at that 99%, you'll hit that and hit the victim with the overhead slam. You'll be able to keep a little bit of extra juice as a reward for successfully hitting the overhead at the proper amount. Basically, that high percentage rate right before the overheat, basically, and then you'll be able to get that extra swing after to get the full two-piece kill, basically, the overhead slam and swing. Thank you for reading, and we hope this was able to provide clarity on Leatherface's chainsaw stalling. Keep the conversation going on our official subreddit, Texas Chainsaw Game, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Alright, so that's basically it. I can also show you guys my Leatherface builds. I'll show you what I used to run when I first started playing Leatherface. It was a different build than I have now. But first I'll show you what I used to run and how powerful that was. It was, so it was big swings at level 3. Attack damage is increased by 50%, but stamina consumption tied to attacks is 200% more costly. So basically, if you're gonna hit, you really want to hit that overhead swing, because the attack damage is going to be 50% more powerful, 15% more powerful, but you're going to lose a lot of stamina. You're going to lose 200% stamina, which is fair, because, I mean, it's such a heavy hit. It's such a heavy hit that, I mean, I think that's fair that you lose all that stamina after, because what are you supposed to do? Just kill everything? Like, that's kind of ridiculous. Because he's really going in, he's running as fast as he can, and he hits you with that overhead. Next is Hysterical Strength. There it is, Hysterical Strength. When below 15% stamina, you deal 20% more damage. Alright, so with the big swings, you automatically lose all that stamina, right? You lose 200% stamina. So then that should also, with the big swings, it'll stack with the Hysterical Strength, because you lose all that stamina with a hit, causing Hysterical Strength to be more powerful. So you also get 15%, you get 20% more damage on top of the 15% damage. So that's 35% more power in that hit. And then I would always top it off with, where's the blood purge? Violent. Just find it here. Yeah, Violent. Your damage is increased by 20% when carrying a full blood vial. So that's 15% plus 20% plus another 20%. So that's 55% more damage. That's the most powerful hit in the game. You overhead anybody with that combination. You have a full blood vial, you have big swings, and you have Hysterical Strength all combined. That's 55% more damage to the victim when you're hitting them. I was in an encounter after the encounter nerf, and I think a Leatherface, well no, I know a Leatherface, they hit me. I'm pretty sure they had that build on. Hysterical Strength, big swings, and Violent. They killed me in the close encounter, and I had won the close encounter too, and I had a lot of health left. I wasn't like half dead or anything. I had a lot of health left because I had Empowered on, so it actually healed me to be in the close encounter. But Leatherface with a build like this on came in and just annihilated me. I didn't have no cell on. I think that would be the only thing that could counter it too. That's the only counter to that overhead hit is Violent. I mean, no cell. That's all you got. So you really got to watch out for Leatherfaces running that kind of a build, because it's a very powerful build. You just have to be very skilled with the chainsaw, as we read in the article in the community hub post. Just because of the fact that should you stall or should you miss the victim, you're gonna stall your chainsaw, which I think is fair, because it's like, why should you be rewarded for missing? If you missed the hit, that's on you. Like, you got outplayed, or you just were too early, you weren't patient. I feel like a lot of family players in general are very impatient. They're over there swinging all over the damn place a lot of the time. They swing everywhere. They're swinging like crazy, you know what I mean? Not even focusing, not even like trying to just sit in there button spamming and swinging and swinging and swinging. And I mean, what kind of gameplay is that? It just looks silly. It looks silly to me, and it shouldn't be rewarded. So I fully agree with what goes on with this kind of a build. And I understand why people are stalling, because they're not being patient. and everything. And so you kind of need to be patient. You just need to play your game. You'll get the kill. I mean, whether or not they get out, you just got to get better as Leatherface. You got to understand how the chainsaw sounds. You don't even really have to look at the meter. Once you can get to the point where you don't even have to look at the meter, you can listen to the chainsaw. It squeals when it's about to stall. So if you can understand that noise that it makes, the chainsaw communicates to you very, very loud and clear. It starts squealing when it's about to. It's a very high-pitched squeal when it's a warning sound, basically. It's about to stall. It's about to overheat and stall, you know what I mean? But if you can keep it at that one squeal tone and not allow it to overheat, keep it at that 99%, not only will you hit the overhead swing with all that power, you'll also be able to, that overhead slam with all that power, you'll also be able to hit the swing after as a reward for hitting the overhead slam. But you have to be able to be comfortable keeping it at as close to that 99% as possible. And also you have to hit the victim, and there you go. You'll hit them and kill them most of the time, unless they're running no cell. And even with that, if you hit the overhead on them, and then you hit the second hit on them, that's 2 pieces of their no cell gone. They only have 1 more. And every family member can hit a victim multiple times. So, like, no cell really isn't that big of a deal, you know? And those still do a lot of damage to them, even with no cell on. When you run a build like this, it's a very powerful build. It's an extremely powerful build. It'll eat through their no cell. It'll damage the hell out of them if you run this build. It's just, you have to be very good with a chainsaw with a build like that. And it's like they said, it's high risk, high reward. And that's fair. I mean, it shouldn't all be given to you. You have to earn it. I think you should really have to earn it, and I think that's fair. And I understand that loud and clear. The build I run on my Leatherface now is Scout. Your movement speed is increased by 15%, but melee damage is reduced by 10%. And then I run Hysterical Strength, as you see. When below 15% stamina, you deal 20% more damage. And then also Still Violent. Your damage is increased by 20%. When carrying a full blood vial. Because with Scout on, I'm always running out of stamina, so my stamina is always low, so I'm going to hit a harder hit. And then with Violent, with the full blood vial, I'm doing at least 35% more damage. It actually minus the 10%, so it's what, 25% damage with an overhead hit. You know, but still, I mean, I'm so fast that even if they get away from me, I can catch up to them if they have no way to cut through a wall or crawl through a crawl space, you know what I mean? And even if they do know how to do that, if you know the basement, if you know the map well enough, a lot of these crawl spaces and cut-throughs, if you know that basement well enough, you can get around that with Leatherface so fast with Scout on, and that sprint, the chainsaw sprint that he does, you can get around all of that so quick because the crawl-through animations that victims have to do is so slow. They don't crawl through fast at all. They crawl through very slow. There are no rush to get through that crawl space. There are no rush to get through that cut through. They'll get away from you in that instant, but if you can presume that they'll go through it and keep going and go around and finesse and find out, and if you know where that crawl space or cut through leads to, you can get around to them and get them before they can even get back through it because of how slow victims move when they're going through cut-throughs or crawl spaces. And plus you could just destroy the crawl space and then they can never use it again, you know what I mean? You cut them off. But the cut-throughs, a lot of the cut-throughs, they lead to just another part of the basement which is easy to get to, you know what I mean? You just go around with Scout on and you'll catch right up to them and you'll be able to overhead them again. And then if you hit the overhead correctly, as we just read, without stalling, you'll get that swing after. You hit 2 overheads in a swing, even with this build on, with that maximum savagery, you know what I mean? You're going to destroy them. Because that's 4 hits. That's 4 hits right there. And no cell still goes even if Anna's in her ability, you know what I mean? It'll still eat her no cell, even when she's in her ability. So, I mean, no one's safe from 4 hits even with this build on. So definitely not safe with 2 hits with the really powerful 1-hit build that Leatherface runs and everything. So I mean, it's up to you how you play him, but I like this build. I like being very fast. I like having a lot of speed. like not having to wait for him to raise the chainsaw up over his head before he gets really fast. He gets even faster with that on. So you have Scout on with the chainsaw sprint. He's super fast with that shit. He can cover a lot of ground really quickly. And it's surprising to victims. A lot of victims aren't prepared unless they know the basement, unless they're good at running a Leatherface. Most victims are going to fall victim to that build. Because if you know the basement, you're gonna know where the cut through leads to. You just go around and catch up with them on the other side because of how slow that animation is for victims. Like I said, they're in no rush to get through it, and so that's basically all you have to do to get around and counter the crawl spaces and cut throughs with speed and power. You know what I mean? And that's all it takes. It's just learning the maps, learning where crawl throughs and cut throughs go. It's important to play victim, because then you'll understand how a victim thinks and everything. I play a lot of victim, but I like to play family too. I like to play both sides. And so, in doing so, I understand how a victim thinks and I understand how a family thinks. You know what I mean? That's why it's important to understand both sides and play both sides. You'll understand the strengths and weaknesses of both sides. And then you'll be able to use it against them. Use their mistakes against them, whoever you're playing against. You know what I mean? And that's how you'll win. You just want to be as indirect as possible. Play as indirectly as possible. You don't want to give your hand, you know what I mean? You gotta think like you're playing poker or playing chess. It's not checkers, it's chess. Because if you're playing chess and they're playing checkers, you're gonna outwit them every time. And that's all it takes to win. But at the end of the day, it's not even all about winning, it's about having a good time in a great horror experience, which is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. Thank you.